I believe that the Bible is one of the most important books on the earth because it's really telling you some really interesting things. But if you don't understand how to read the symbols, it's never going to dawn on you how this stuff works.
The Bible wasn't written in real time. Nobody was walking around going, "What'd you say, Matthew? Let me write this down again." Oh, Jesus, hold on. Say it one more time, sir. I didn't get that last quote you just said. Let me write this down one more time.
Wait a minute. You mean Abraham actually fixed dinner for God, for the Creator, and he sat there and had dinner and a couple of drinks and chit-chatted with Abraham and talked to his wife?
I'll ask any Christian, I challenge any Christian, who wrote the Bible? I've never gotten the right answer since I've asked that question. Every time I ask them face to face, who wrote the Bible? They don't have no idea. They start telling me the apostles' names. They start talking about Judas and John and all these. No, they wrote nothing. Those men were illiterate men. They couldn't even read or write. They were illiterate people. The Bible was written from 100 AD to 900 AD by Phoenicians, followers of Hermes, Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. That's who wrote the Bible, and they didn't write a Bible. What they did was they started copying ancient texts from all over the world, remnants of the Library of Alexandria, copying these ancient texts onto different parchment papers and stuffing them inside of vases and jars inside of caves. Over time, between 100 AD to 900 AD, people, explorers and archaeologists coming across these vases and opening them up, finding all these ancient writings. These ancient writings were copied from, okay, let me translate this tablet onto this writing, onto this parchment paper, and then store it away, right? They would study these things and read them inside of caves in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And so over the course of that amount of time, 100 AD to 900 AD, that's after the death. Jesus and Paul and Judas and Matthew, they were dead 2,000 years prior. They were gone, long gone, ancient history. The Bible wasn't written in real time. Nobody was walking around going, "What'd you say, Matthew? Let me write this down again." Wait, say that again, because I didn't quite hear that last sentence. Let me write this down again. Nobody's doing that. Nobody going, "No, oh, Jesus, hold on. Say it one more time, sir. I didn't get that last quote you just said. Let me write this down one more time." Come on, man. That was written long after these people were gone and passed away. So where did this information come from? It came from ancient texts and ancient tablets, recopied onto different parchment papers. And the proof is in the pudding. You can go back and you can find those same exact quotes and statements and words out of the ancient text. It comes right from there. Some of it copied word for word directly onto these parchment papers. Then later, people who discovered these things, eventually they came together and brought them all together and said, "Hey, let's make a canonized book out of this." And that's when the Council of Nicaea got together and they started going through and curating what they would put into this canonized Bible and what they would not put into the canonized Bible. And then when they got to a good mix of neuroscience where they knew they can utilize this information to control masses of people, they said, we're going to put this one out right here. Boom. We altered this. We changed that. We mistranslated this by accident on purpose. We changed this around. We put this over here. We moved this around. We took out the part talking about aliens. We took out the part talking about spaceships and UFOs. Okay, so now I think we got something here. We can dominate the planet with this.
In the Bible, there are many things that are misunderstood and mistranslated into English that comes from what we call Hebrew. First of all, we need to understand that which we refer to as Hebrew is in point of fact not Hebrew, but Canaanite, Phoenician Canaanite. The bloodline is from the ancient Middle East called the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians, that area in which Phoenicia existed was called Cana, the land of Cana. So today we refer to the Canaanite, Phoenician Canaanite language as Hebrew. All you have to do is go to reference books and look up ancient Hebrew, and it will tell you ancient Hebrew is actually Phoenician Canaanite. and it develops and mutates and comes down through history until today we call it Hebrew. But Hebrew is actually a Phoenician language. And many of the concepts and ideas which are expressed in the Old Testament are not original to the Old Testament. It goes back to even further back into ancient history, so that many of the concepts and belief systems in Judaism and Christianity are very, very ancient. And I believe that the Bible is one of the most important books on the earth, because it's really telling you some really interesting things. But if you don't understand how to read the symbols, it's never going to dawn on you how this stuff works. I think the New Testament is probably the most important story in the whole world, but not as history, but as a metaphor, as an encoded message. But let me go back to this one subject that I've been very interested in for a long time, and that is, in the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis 1:1 says, in the King James Bible, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. But that's not what it says in the old ancient Hebrew or Phoenician language. That's not what it says in the original language. That's how it was translated from the English and the King's English. Well, the King's English, the King James Version, was translated by the best translators that the king had at the time. And it was very well done. However, they know more about the language today than what they did then. And so there's a lot of imperfections in the King James Bible that could be misleading unless you understand what the words actually meant in the ancient world. And so when you read in the beginning, this is Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That's not what it says in Hebrew. It says in the beginning of the creation, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is not the word God. El is a Phoenician, Canaanite name or word for deity, El. We talked a little bit about that last week. Elohim is like adding an S onto an English word. You have C-A-R for car, or C-A-R-S, cars, more than one. So adding an S on the end, to the end of most English words means it's plural, in the plural. Well, that's exactly what Elohim means. El is God, Elohim is plural. So the correct understanding should be read, the Hebrew read, in the beginning the gods created the heavens and the earth, not God. And more interesting than that, this is why, incidentally, in Genesis 1:28, when God is creating Adam and Eve, the first couple, and it says, God said, come, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Who's us and our? Was God talking to himself? Come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Later on in Genesis, I think it's 3, the scripture says, God said, here man has become as one of us, knowing good and evil. The point is, who is God talking about? Us. Here's man made in our image after looking like us. Here, now he's like us. Who's us? Who's our? Well, it's Elohim, the gods. So consequently, what we're talking about here is that the gods created us, created the heavens and the earth and all things on it. Now, more important to and this is the whole subject, of course, you could take this, in many different directions. But interesting, in Genesis 1:2 says, and the earth was without form and void. That's another mistranslation. In the original, it does not say that the earth was without form and void. Actually, it says, and the earth became a waste and a desolation. Not form and void, but waste and desolation. And it was not, as I said, the scripture, if you read it today in the Bible, Genesis 1:2, says, and the earth was without form and void. No. The earth became a waste and a desolation. Consequently, if you go to Genesis 9, which is Genesis 9:1, where God is talking to Noah after the flood of Noah's day, and God says to Noah, now understanding that according to the story, everyone has been wiped off the earth in the great flood, and so God says to Noah and his sons, his 3 sons, go forth into the world now and multiply and replenish the earth. And you ask the question, wait a minute, the word is R-E, replenish the earth, meaning, not plenish, replenish, meaning do it again. Why? Well, simply because before Noah, there was a whole civilization. God brings a flood, according to the story. God brings a flood, destroys the world and all life on it. And now God is saying to Noah and his sons and their wives, go now on the earth and reproduce and fill the earth and replenish the earth. Well, that is a correct translation from the Hebrew, and I've talked to rabbis about that. And the word is replenish, R-E, means do it again. Okay, it makes sense that God would be telling Noah to redo it again. However, if you go back to Genesis 1:28, where God is creating, the first chapter of the Bible, where God is creating man, and man and woman, Adam and Eve, he says to Adam and Eve, multiply and replenish the earth. Do it again, replenish the earth. Implying, of course, do it again. What are you talking about doing again? Well, if you just read Genesis 1:2 correctly, it said, and the earth was without form and void. No, the earth became a waste and a desolation. So the rabbis will tell you, and the rabbinical reference works will tell you, that what is being said in Genesis 1:2 and in 1:28, when man and woman are being created, is that God is recreating all over again. And so consequently, the Bible, the Old Testament, is a story for this dispensation. This time, the world is being recreated. Now, what happened a million years ago, 10,000 or 100,000 years ago, that's none of your business. For you right now, this is what you need to understand. And the bottom line is that we are not the first creatures on the earth, the first time man's been on the earth. We now know that man has been on the earth probably millions and millions of years, and that for us to think that mankind was created 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 years ago is ludicrous, because we know better than that.
Where was Jesus from the age of 12 to 32? Where was he? Where was he? Where was Jesus from the age of 12 to 32? Somebody type it in the comment box. Where was he? Where did he exist? Where was he? Where was he located on this planet from age of 12? Name me the exact countries he went to. Somebody said Jewish carpenter. Good job, Michael. Okay, thanks, Chris. He was in Egypt. Somebody got some knowledge. He was in Egypt. At 12, he went to Egypt to an area called Coptic Cairo with a C, C-O-P-T-I-C, Coptic Cairo, where the cross already long existed, long before Christianity even came into existence. Jesus was not a Christian because Christianity didn't exist. Christ consciousness existed, and there had been many Christs that had walked the planet long before Yeshua, because his name isn't Jesus. I'm only saying Jesus to make you guys understand who I'm talking about. The name is Yeshua, okay? And so the house that he lived in is a shrine. I've been to the house several times. It's in Coptic Cairo. The bed he slept in is still there in the basement crypt area. It's still there. The name is engraved in the windowsill. Him and his mom both went there and lived there. While he was there, what did he do? What did Jesus do? He went to go study the Egyptian mysteries. Yeah. the Egyptian mysteries taught by who? Thoth, Thoth, the king of knowledge and wisdom. Tahuti, by many names, you know him by many names. Kukulkan, Viracocha, by many, many names around this planet. Thor, Mercury, same person. So he went there to learn the Egyptian mysteries. He became an adept initiate into the ancient Egyptian mysteries, by the way. An adept initiate, handpicked adept initiate, and went in deep there. Once he learned the Egyptian mysteries and all the esoteric wisdom and metaphysics, where'd he go next? Tibet. He went to Tibet to learn Reiki healing with his hands, Qigong, and all those arts. He got accepted by the Tibetan monks. But see, they won't teach you this in Bible study. You'll never hear this in Bible study. You'll never hear this. You got to read the Gospel of the Holy 12 on your own, because they're never going to pull it out in church. You know why? They don't even know it exists. They don't even know the Gospel of the Holy 12 even exists. Then after he left Tibet, where did he go? Where'd he go? Now, any Christians on here, guys, you basing your eternity off of loving this guy, but you don't even know nothing about him. He left Tibet and he went to India to learn the mystic arts. Yeah, mystic arts. The stuff that now Christians call demonic and evil. No, he went to learn the mystic arts. So everything that he went and studied from the age of 12 to 32 to make him who he was, now if you go to church and talk about these things, they kick you out of, they excommunicate you from the church because they say you're worshiping the devil. After he left India, what did he do? He taught reincarnation all the way back down into Egypt along the way. Reincarnation. Yeah, just like Thoth teaches reincarnation. And the ability to ascend to a high level to where you can incarnate at will. Thoth says he can even incarnate in and on the plane he desires. He can incarnate in a multi-dimensional status. He can go to different dimensions. In and on, and at will. At will, he can transfer consciousness into another avatar body, at will. This is what Jesus was learning. And so that's why when you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, I put Thoth's verses right next to Yeshua's verses in the modern day Bible. So you can see that Yeshua was just quoting Thoth the Atlantean, his teacher. That's what he was doing. He was quoting the words of his own teacher, his master. Because the Emerald Tablets were written 36,000 years ago. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? See, y'all, you think you have a little bit of knowledge, but then you realize, if you drop your ego, you realize you don't know anything. A lot of you don't even know. You have no clue. I put 40 years in. Over 1,000 books, scriptures, cylinder scrolls, tablets, cuneiform, papyruses, traveling the world, meeting with indigenous cultures, meeting with sages, meeting with elders, meeting with homegrown archaeologists and homegrown guides in these jungles, hiking 37 miles through the jungles of Cambodia to temples, doing the Inca Trail, 3-day hike through the jungles, flying over the Nazca lines, going to all these places all around the world, in person, climbing up the Grand Gallery into the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. Guys, there's a lot to learn out here, but you're not going to get it staying inside of your zip code. And so if you can't travel, you can't get out and do these things, there's so much research material out here, but research goes deeper than watching somebody on YouTube and doing a Google search with your fingers, a 2-second Google search. Oh, I know everything now. No, you don't know anything. You don't know anything. Show me the passport stamps. Get me a pastor that has the passport stamps that I have, that can match me up passport to passport. Let's sit down and let's talk. Let's have an open discussion. The limit of his knowledge is always going to fall back on what the biblical text is. The only thing I've done this so many times, that's why I know. I've done this. I did this in person with somebody just a couple of weeks ago. They fall back on scriptures and they start quoting scriptures again. That's the height of their knowledge. They don't have anything past that. So all they can do is keep falling back on what they already have. But see, I got the Bible, I got the Quran, but I got everything that those books came from. And I studied them intently and researched them.
Who is God? Well, the scripture says, and this is a very difficult word to deal with, God, G-O-D, because that's a lot of baggage. What are you talking about when you talk about God? Well, God is dog spelled backwards, as I said. This is why churches have dogma in their teachings, because it goes back to Anubis, the dog star, Anubis the dog, the god of, and the ancient Egyptian religion. But when you look at the word, and now I get back to what I was going to say to start with, that in Genesis 1:2, where it incorrectly says and the earth was without form and void, no, the earth became a waste and a desolation. The two Hebrew words that are being translated there is tohu and vohu. Pronunciation, it would be T-O-E hyphen W-H-O, tohu. That's not the way it's spelled in Hebrew, but that's the way it's pronounced. T-O-E-W-H-O, tohu. Vohu would be V-O-E-W-H-O, tohu, vohu, waste, desolation. There's only two places in the Bible where tohu vohu is used, and those two places, they're always used together. And there's only two places to start with. One is in Jeremiah, and one is in Genesis 1:2. And in the scripture in Jeremiah says, I saw the earth in a vision, and the earth was tohu vohu, meaning the earth became, and my eyes, I saw the earth, and it became a waste and a desolation. Well, when did that happen? Well, according to the Jeremiah prophecy, it happened many, many, many thousands of years before. And the prophet Isaiah said God gave him a vision. And in the vision he saw the earth and tohu vohu, which is the earth became in his eyes. It was beautiful. And the scripture says that, Jeremiah says, and the earth was beautiful. Its animals, its birds, its civilizations were absolutely beautiful to see. And then tohu vohu, it became a waste and a desolation, meaning that the earth probably was a very beautiful place thousands and thousands of years ago, maybe 100,000 years ago. And Jeremiah was given the opportunity to see the way the earth was 30, 40, 50,000 years ago, with animals and a whole different beautiful world. And then something happened, some kind of a major catastrophe, tohu vohu. It became a waste and a desolation. Now, when you go back to Genesis 1:2, tohu vohu is always understood to be a situation that the earth goes through when it changes from what the ancients called one dispensation to another dispensation, or one period of time in God's history, not our history, but in the history of the universal God force, the way it keeps time. And of course, it's, one day is 1,000 years. Well, that's probably more than that. Theoretically, using the term God, how does God keep time? Well, my Lord, God's forever. So, how long would that be? So in the universal God force concept of time, millions of years are nothing. So consequently, what is being said there is that tohu vohu implies a total destruction on a cosmic level between dispensations of creation between God, which is translated tohu vohu. Some terrible catastrophe happened on the earth in which the gods were angry, and the whole thing was just leveled. Well, maybe it wasn't the gods who did it, but the point being is that the Bible is saying that the gods, Elohim, became angry at the creation, and Jeremiah was allowed to see tohu vohu, a total destruction all over the earth, a major catastrophe. And that is precisely, as I said, the words and the concept is used for the dispensation of one creative period going to another creative period. So when everything is collapsed and destroyed, now theoretically, according to the Bible, God says, come, let us do it again. All right, let's start all over again, and let's create a man and a woman. And Rabbi Marvin S. Antelman, some 35 years ago, Marvin Antelman, Antelmann, Marvin Antelman of Newton, Massachusetts, was 35 years ago president of the American Rabbinical Association. And he and I were very close friends for many years. I used to chide him all the time about his understanding of the Bible. But Rabbi Antelman, president of the American Rabbinical Association, said to me, I asked him about that scripture where God said, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And I said to Rabbi, what are you talking about? Come, let us. Who's us? Did God got to get permission from somebody else that's working with him or what? And he says, no, it's a misunderstanding on how the sentence is understood by Gentiles and Jews. Jews also misunderstand. They don't know any more than the Gentiles do. There is a correct way to read that sentence. And the normal way people think that the scripture is saying when it says God said, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Most people think that that's God is saying, come, let us create a creature. Let us make a new creation, a creature, and we will call him, maybe we'll call him man. So come, let us make a creature, and we will call him man and woman. Man with a womb, man. And that's what most people understand that scripture to mean. That's not what it says at all. Rabbi Antelman says, nowhere in the Bible does it say God created man. It doesn't say that. Go back and read it correctly. What is said is that God said, or Elohim, the gods said, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. The correct way to understand that is the gods were saying, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Not make man. Man's already here. Come, let us remake man. Do it again. Let us make man according to our image and our likeness. And so the ancient Jews and the Hebrews and all the ancient civilizations, starting all the way back to Samaria, understood what was being said. It's just that we don't understand because all we get is our news from ABC. We wouldn't know anything about what's going on. But if you go back to the ancient works, you will find that the ancient people, the Sumerians, Babylonians, Phoenician Canaanites, Egyptians, the ancient Greeks and Romans, all of them understood that we are the creation of another entities. We are the creation of the gods.